Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Homemaker Chic podcast. This is the podcast where we are rescuing the art of homemaking from the daily grind. And here's this cool thing. We cover all different types of topics here on the podcast. And a few, was it weeks ago, months ago? Time is a vortex.
Yeah, 5 or 6 weeks ago. Golly.
Okay. We had our friend Christy Richman on, and y'all's response to that episode was pretty incredible.
Crazy.
It was crazy. And we realized, we cover laundry, we cover cleaning, we cover kitchen stuff and cooking and all these great things. But we are also, as homemakers, just people.
Yeah. Go ahead. No, go ahead. Well, I was going to say, you and I have always skirted around health, but we've not spoken on it definitively because that's not our expertise.
You don't say.
We've talked about it some and we've stirred enough, where people would then ask questions. Oh, what do you use for this? What do you suggest for that? But not, coming in hot.
Yeah. Well, we are today, again.
Coming in hot.
Back in the saddle, ladies and gentlemen. Christy. Welcome, friend.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm excited to be here. Ready to dive in with you.
At least one of us knows what we're talking about.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Yeah, no, the response to your last episode was so good. And I think it really pointed out people really do have health issues that they're dealing with. And obviously a huge spectrum of things that when we're alone in our homes, just by ourselves, these are things that we still deal with. And I think in a lot of ways, we deal with them to a point that it can cripple the work that we actually do in our home. We're not able to actually maybe execute with the energy and gusto that we'd like because of said issues. When you are meeting with your patients, is there like a quality of life aspect that usually brings them to you where they're just like, help, I can't function?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, a lot of the people that I do talk to and that I do help I feel like they're in that homemaker community. Not always. I do have some moms and some dads even, and grandmas and grandpas. I have really a whole spectrum of people that I deal with, but I would say that, the quality of life issue eventually brings people to me that they realize that whatever symptoms or red flags their body's been sending them along the ways are suddenly just screaming so loud at them now that they have to do something about it. And it becomes an issue, like you said, as far as like not being able to carry out some of your daily tasks or keep up with the kids, or, if you're a homeschool mom, you really, and with multiple kids homeschooling, like all of us are, it's really difficult to focus on that one, which we hold to be one of the most important jobs that we have. Right. Mm-hmm. It becomes extremely hard to even focus on that one important thing. Or even when I was really ill, a couple of years ago, it was a real chore and a real job for me to literally get up out of bed and to make breakfast for the kids. Like that, seemingly simple thing became a huge quality of life issue because of all of these chronic health issues that I was dealing with at a young age. And so, yes, I do see that a lot with people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not being, it's so you don't realize how precious it is until you can't.
That's exactly right.
And then it is scary. Because then your mind starts going to like, well, what if this continues? What if this gets worse? What if I get really behind?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was actually just a quick little story. There was a period of time for me, I guess it was 2021, where I was having such crazy neurological issues that I couldn't even hardly walk up the steps without my head just... It's like everything just like flowed up to my head and would cause me terrible headache real quick. I would have to like sit down at the top of the steps and try not to pass out just from walking up a flight of steps. And I remember my left leg when it was really, really bothering me. I wasn't, it's almost like I would lift it up, but I wasn't sure where it was going to go down, where it was going to come back down. I couldn't go out and take a walk around the lake with my kids, and I couldn't exercise because I would have these episodes where I would feel like I had to pass out. Well, found out later it was POTS. That might be something some people are
I have
familiar.
no idea what POTS is.
Yeah, it's postural orthostatic tachycardic syndrome, and it happens it happens as a result of severe nervous system dysregulation. That sympathetic nervous system regulates your heart rate and your breathing rate and all of those vital functions of your body. And when your nervous system is on basically hyperdrive and in fight or flight for so long, and there's just so much dysregulation, it can cause POTS. So anyway, that was just something to me. Angela, you saying that reminded me of that, because I remember the time that I couldn't even hardly walk up a flight of steps without passing out, or walking up my hill next to my house. You just don't realize how precious your legs are and how precious just walking is, or being able to run after your kids, or have the energy to get up and make breakfast until you literally can't do it anymore. And those are kind of extreme cases. Not everybody comes to me that sick, but I myself was that sick, and that was really difficult, but helps me now in the, now where I'm at, to be able to look back and say, my gosh, I'm so thankful. Lord, thank you for the just basic bodily functions that I now really, really appreciate and covet. So,
Well, today we're going to be deep diving into gut health. And, it's funny you say that you don't appreciate it. I have to tell you guys this silly, gross story. And it's related to gut health. But my grandpa had colon cancer, and I loved my grandpa so much. And I spent a lot of time with him. And I would clean his house. This was when I was, like late elementary school. And during middle school and early high school years, I would clean his house for him. And he had a colonoscopy bag because he had colon cancer. He'd had his colon removed. And I would just yell at him. I'd be like, Grandpa, clean up after yourself. Like, you can do better than this. Come on, like, be cleaner when you change your bags, And he would just, Che, whatever. But like the simplest bodily function, pooping. I mean, like one of those things you don't even think about until you can't do it well. It's not working like it should. I mean, these are these things that maybe we don't want to talk about, but the reality is, as the saying goes, we all poop.
As the children's book says, everybody poops. All right. Well, let's thank Dry Farm. And I think that's a great segue, because I'm sure we're going to talk about gut health and microbiome, and sugar plays such a huge role in gut health. And the great news is that Dry Farm has no added residual sugars. So there's no sugar added to the fermentation process in Dry Farm wines. And that's the wine that Shay and I drink. These are naturally grown, harvested by hand, organic, biodynamic wines, no GMO yeast, no added sugar. Shay loves to call this the sourdough of the wine world, and I think that's the perfect description. So you get to drink wine that's been made the way wine was made for hundreds of years. And it's a spontaneous fermentation, and it's just like everything good that you want it to be. And you're not sacrificing that wine experience. So I was a really tough convert to Dry Farm.
Seriously.
I was a tough convert, everyone. If you're listening and you're me, like your defenses are up, you're like, no, but I know wine. I want to drink good wine. That was so me. But this is not wine that's been done a certain way and then slapped with a Dry Farm label. These are from small family farms and chateaux and vineyards all around the world: France, Italy, Austria, Germany, South Africa. And it's just done in a gosh, I want to say like heritage manner, but like, what's the expression I'm looking for? It's in the old ways,
It is.
And so, yeah, you're not if you love wine, if you know wine, you're not sacrificing. This is just an old school method. And you know how I feel about that. So you can visit dryfarmwines.com/homemaker chic. And if you're ready to convert, you're going to get an extra bottle for a penny. So if you order 3, you'll get 1, order an extra one, order 6, you'll get an extra one. And you can start with rosé if it's still really hot where you live, or some sparkling, red, whites, bubblies, you choose. But we really invite you to try this, especially for those listening that are very mindful of their health and what they bring across the threshold of their front door and the threshold of their mouth. So dryfarmwines.com/homemaker chic.
Okay, Christy, gut health. First off, why is it so bad everywhere? Why is it everywhere?
Yeah, it is. It really is. Especially in America. This is quite a soapbox for me, but I'm gonna really try not to.
Yay!
No,
do
it's
it.
great.
Just jump up and down.
Your opportunity. There's just thousands and thousands of people listening to you.
Right.
So
Giving me the green light here, huh? Okay. Well, there's a lot to be said about why gut health is so bad in America specifically. I know we have people listening in Canada and in the UK and all over the world, but here in America, what's allowed to be put in our food and added to it that literally aren't even food ingredients. It's atrocious. It really, really is. And the majority of America is relying on the food system. They're not, a majority of America aren't able to grow, or maybe they're able to, but they don't know how to, take care of a lot of the producing of their own food. And some kind of have a 50-50 mix, and some people know absolutely nothing about it and don't know that, that's an option for them. So the majority of America, I would say, are relying on this food system that is really, the benefit is for the industrial companies. It's not for the individual themselves. And when that is in mind and not the individual's health, then they have, they have profits they want to meet and a bottom line they want to meet. And so they're going to put the cheapest things into the food, the cheapest ingredients, and they're going to make sure that that pendulum of benefit and profit is swinging toward the company, not toward the individual. So what ends up happening is we're consuming, especially when we eat processed foods, majority of the time is what I'm talking about here is processed foods. When we eat processed foods, things, you've heard people talk about in the middle of the store, not around the outside of the store, right? So things that are in boxes, things that have multiple ingredients, more than 2 or 3 ingredients in them, things that are in boxes and packages and things like that. It's really, really hard to get away from those added ingredients. And nutrition is the place that we have to start when we think about gut health. Okay. So nutrition is that foundation. It's the foundation of wellness in general. But especially about gut health, because you think about it, the food is going into our mouth, down our esophagus, into our stomach, and then it's sitting and it's fermenting in our gut, right? It's just breaking down and it's beginning a fermentation process in our gut. And so it's literally, it's going into our bodies are breaking it down and using it. And when we have things in our food that are not even, pronounceable, number one, right? You look at the back of a package and you're like, I've never heard of this ingredient. I don't even know how to pronounce this. A lot of things that are put into processed foods are not edible, really not edible for us. And even further than that, our bodies can't use them and don't want to use them. And so then they become kind of a toxic substance in our body. And so that's the number one reason, Shay, why the America's gut health, I guess, if we're going to talk about it as like a universal thing, why America's gut health is so bad is number one, because of the food.
So I've seen this broken down into like 3 parts. The first one being, we'll get to the other 2. I don't want to spoil the rest of the conversation. But the first one was just eating the right foods. As a weapon for positive gut health was just making sure you're eating the right foods.
Yep,
Mm-hmm.
exactly right. Yeah, that's where you have to start. It's literally the food that you eat is literally the fuel for your body. It's fuel for your body, but then it's fuel for the good bacteria that live in your gut. And I talk to my clients about this all the time to help them understand the importance of the gut and the role that it plays in our health. I let them know that we're more bacterial DNA than we are human DNA. And that's crazy to think. We have, because we have bacteria all over on our skin. We have good beneficial bacteria on our skin, in our bodies, lining every, orifice and every nook and cranny of our body. And we have more in our gut than we have anywhere else on our body. And that's really, really important. We'll maybe get into a little deeper on that here in just a minute, but it's of utmost importance. The gut is of utmost importance. And if we don't start there, when we're evaluating our health and when we're looking at our symptoms and we're looking at, all of these things that affect that quality of life on a daily basis. If we don't start in the gut, then we're missing the boat. We're completely missing. And that's where I found myself for a while. I was looking at all the symptoms and I was looking at, all the things that were literally staring me in the face every day. And I was dealing with every day and trying to deal with those little symptoms. And this is where, conventional medicine really, really focuses the majority of their effort is on that symptom management rather than looking at the root cause. And, even back in the 3rd century BC, when Hippocrates was beginning to, he's the father of medicine, when he was beginning to really bring medicine or bring, the human anatomy and how it works and all these things from more of a, what's the word I'm looking for? From more of like this ethereal thing or more of this like even superstitious thing. They were very superstitious back then about health because they didn't know how the body worked and all these things. He took it from that place and brought it more into the scientific plane where he even said all disease begins in the gut. From his perspective and from his point of view and all the research and all the study he'd done on the human body, he brought all disease back to the gut. And that still reigns true today. And now in modern times, we have the research and the capability and the tools to be able to prove that, definitively prove that.
You have to tell people, Christy.
What's that?
So how you have to tell people, I mean, if people are wondering like, okay, yes, this is important. Like, how do I actually know what's going on in the gut? You have to explain to them this testing process, which was not very pleasurable for me.
You don't think so?
As a non-nurse, no.
I would submit too that it's, you almost can't help but not. I mean, the food system is so jacked up and the sugar situation is so out of control, and we've all heard the stories of the sugar industry lying and fudging research in the 60s and blaming disease on meat and fats and everything. And, you've got that, you've got like the FDA that allows for like up to 20% air on food labeling. So there could be 20% more sugar in whatever you're eating than you thought possible. You have them using different names for sugar so they can disperse it throughout the ingredients list. And then it doesn't look like sugar is the 3rd ingredient or the 2nd ingredient, but it's everywhere, It should be up top if you combined them all together. It's just, so you've got all that. And then you have, for some of us, like for me, for example, I was not having gut-related symptoms. I just wanted to do the test. Like I was more coming at it from like hey, I'm getting older. I want to check my hormones, but I know hormones have a lot to do with my gut. And you said, well, let's do a GI map. Like I was not having bloating. I've never had those kind of gas. I've never had gut issues ever. And then we get my test and it's like, whoa. And I'm like, wait, I eat really good. So what is going on in everyone else's guts? Because
Exactly.
like, I hate
Yeah.
the word guts, by the way. Gosh, could we just come up with a gut, but I'm thinking, wow, like this is scary. And I'm not like this pinnacle of health because I'm on this, I've been on about a 4-year, very intense health journey, 20 years in growing towards that direction. But then I think about like my grandmother in a nursing home and the food they're feeding her and, and children in schools. It is a disaster.
It really is. Yeah, it really is. And you're right, Angela. And I think I told you that, I think I told both of you this after we did your GI maps, was that if this was, so basically what I said was your lifestyle is what is saving you right now, right? The food you're eating, the food you're growing and that you're producing on your own, this is what is saving you from having chronic health
big
issues
problems.
the rest of America does. Yeah. Even though, your GI maps weren't perfect, and nobody's is, but the lifestyle that you both choose to lead, which really this is what will save America, right? At large. This is what will save America from all these chronic health issues, is them realizing that same thing in the healthcare industry, but in the food, on the food plane, the same thing is, I'm taking this back. This is my health. This is my food. I'm taking this back and I'm going to take ownership of it, and I'm going to grow as much as I can grow. I'm going to eat as much as I can grow. And I'm going to take back what convenience has taken, what the convenient food industry has taken, from me. And I'm going to take this back. And people come to that point. Some people never come to that point. But people come to that point at different parts or different phases in their lives, depending on what they are experiencing and what they have going on. And once you come to that place that says, okay, I know that what I'm eating from the big box stores and those places like that, and all this processed food, I know it's not good for me. So what do I do? That's, when you start to get curious, is when you start to really get into walking down that road of beginning to heal, where you say, okay, I'm eating margarine. Okay, I know that's not good for me. What can I use instead of margarine? Well, I'm going to find grass-fed butter. And that would be a huge step forward, right? Or I'm eating, I don't know, just steak from the store, right? Okay, well, I have a farmer down the road who I know has cattle. Maybe I can get a half a beef from him a year. That would be a huge, and then save up to be able to do that. That would be a huge step forward. Or just growing your own lettuce in the backyard and maybe a tomato plant, or just starting there, right? Little steps. When I started gardening, it was just little steps. And then I ended up finding you, Shay. I found your blog, and then, found Angela. And then I was like, oh, I can take this to the next level. And, felt really inspired by those things. And so it's just taking that initial step of saying, okay, I know what I'm doing isn't optimal, right? I can do better. And then making those little simple, I call them simple swaps. Excuse me. You make little simple swaps. And so it's not overwhelming, right? I don't ask people to go into their pantry and just throw everything out, right? You just throw everything out and you go spend $1,000 to fill it all back up. That's not what I ask people to do. It's little simple swaps. It's people changing their habits for the long term, right? Making better food choices. That's becoming a lifestyle for them, so that they can be well, and that they can be free of chronic illness for life, instead of just making it a temporary change. It really has to be
And
a lifestyle shift.
I think that hits on the perfect point. Like, Angela and I we've been talking about our GI map results a lot back and forth, and, no GI symptoms. And yet 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road, you are completely set up for chronic disorders.
Yeah, exactly.
Where you might not be feeling that today because you're this age and you're holding it together with your nutrition, you're sleeping, you're doing all these things that to be good for you. But 20 years down the road, eventually your body, the way you explained it to me, Christy, was like, right now you have a super strong immune system, and good job. But like that's duct tape on a crack in the boat. Like eventually your immune system will get tired for one reason or another. It could be a particularly stressful episode. It could just be the effect of age. But without dealing with these things, you're set up. You might feel great today. You might feel okay tomorrow, but how are you going to feel in 20 years?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's a huge paradigm shift for people when they finally realize that I'm not just living day to day for myself today, but literally what I'm feeding my body, what I'm doing for my body today is doing either good or harm to my future self. That was a big shift for me when I started realizing that I'm going to not just take care of myself now and do the things, the work I need to do now, for me tomorrow, but I'm doing this for me 10 years down the road and 20 years down the road. And when we look at gut health, we have to think about that way. It's, like Dave Ramsey talks about, getting out of debt is that marathon mentality versus the sprint mentality. We're looking at it as a long-term investment. And it's exactly what your wellness is. And when you're investing in your gut health and the food you eat every day, you're investing in yourself for that long-term benefit. And yes, you're going to have benefits right away. When you start eating all organic, or when you start raising your own beef or your own food, or, getting at least cleaner options than you've done in the past, you're going to experience immediate benefits. You may not, be completely aware of them, but the inside of you is, your body is. Those little bacteria we talked about that are, we're more bacteria than DNA, or more bacteria than human. They know right away that there's been a shift, and they're happier because of it. And so, because they control everything in the body, there's benefits probably that you're not even realizing, that, neurochemical changes and, nervous system changes and things, just little slight things. But in the long term, that's really when you start to see the benefits of it. So, I love thinking about it that way, because when we think about gut health, when I do a GI map on somebody, and we're really looking at that root cause of, why are you having headaches? Why are you having, irregular periods? Why are you not able to conceive? All these things. Why do you have autoimmune disease? When we look at the real root of that, we're looking at the very the very basic cellular, reasoning behind that. And one thing I tell my clients all the time is that, number one, your GI map and your body, your gut, did not get this place overnight. This, all we see on this, what we see on this lab readout is a culmination of the foods you ate and the medicines you took during childhood, all the way up through your teen years, early adult years. And if, they're in their 30s like I am, it's been a product of 3 decades of, excuse me, it's been a product of 3 decades of food choices and medication and stress and environmental factors and all of these, trauma for a lot of people. All of these things impact those good bacteria and how they function. And then what I tell them is not to expect to fix this overnight, right? Again, here's that marathon mentality that we have to adopt. The body does not heal quickly, not very quickly. You get a cut on your skin, and you're looking at, maybe 3-4 days if it's not terrible. But when we're talking about gut health, those bacteria, they don't take an hour or a day or even a week to start changing. It takes months for these, because we're talking billions and trillions of bacteria in our gut. And we're talking about extremely complex relationships between each bacterial family and how they operate, and how, they need the right foods to grow, and we need the bad guys to go away, and we're fixing the gut lining at the same time. And there's just so many things that we're doing. And it's the real benefit is coming as as the work is being done over the months. And in some cases, like for me, because mine was so extensively broken, it took me almost 2 years to really, like, I wouldn't say even I'm 100% healed yet. And on this side of heaven, we're not going to be, right? But to sit, like, it took me probably 2 years to where I was no longer having food allergies and no longer, I was able to start having raw dairy again and a little bit of sourdough and, some things like that. The body takes a long time to heal, and we have to honor that. I tell my people that every day. Like, we have to honor that timeline for our bodies. We have to honor the process of repair. And if we don't, then we're falling back into that conventional trap where we say, okay, body, you're not doing something quickly enough for me. I'm going to force you to do something that you weren't meant to do. And then that's what we have further problems, right? So
why don't we take a break and thank some of the show sponsors? And then I have a few questions for you that I think I want to give you a permission to really nerd out. So let's thank our sponsors. I'd love to say thank you to American Blossom Linens. Here's what I want you to do. Want you to write down this code, Summer Chic 20 with the number 20, Summer Chic 20. That is your treat. That is 20% off at AmericanBlossomLinens.com. And here's what you're going to do. You're going to be able to restock your linen closet, which I think is so wonderful as we're looking at back to school and getting our homes. We're kind of shedding our bohemian ways from the summer, and we're going to get things tidied up and dialed in. And I'm sure someone in your home needs new sheets. I'm sure that you need some new blankets for winter, or maybe you have a baby shower at church coming up and you need a beautiful crib set for a baby. These linens, everything is American made. So from the cotton grown in the fields to the beautiful box that comes on your front door with some Georgia peach tea as a special treat when you get to unpack this package, everything from American Blossom is American made. And they're so proud of that. They have been making sheets for 5-star hotels for over 125 years. This is their domestic line. We know you're going to love your American Blossom linens sheets as much as we do. They have a 2-year happiness guarantee. So the idea is invest once. This is a big deal. So Summer Chic 20 for 20% off. It's time to dress your bed in American Blossom linens. Thank you so much to Janet and her team. They're amazing. And they've been with the show since about day one, which is just incredible. We love you, Janet.
We also want to say thank you to Tupes and Co. And look, we're talking about eating the right foods. We haven't got to the segment of the podcast where we're going to talk about removing the toxins and the place that all of those toxins live. And a lot of toxins live in your skincare, in your shampoo, in your makeup, in all these things that you're putting on your biggest organ, your skin. So tupesandco.com and use code HOMEMAKER CHIC while you're there. This is where you can shop for your makeup, for your skincare that has no preservatives, no chemicals. Everything is so clean. Emily is very transparent about what's included. And she should be. She's very proud of it. You can look up the ingredient list right there on the website. So go in and shop for these nourishing skincare products. Soap to wash your face with, beautiful tallow-based balms and lotions. You can do lips, you can do your eyebrows, your blush, your luminizers and bronzers. And, it's still summertime. There's still a lot going on outside in the sunshine. So while you're there, make sure that you check out the deodorants, their natural deodorant that actually works. It does not have baking soda. It actually nourishes your skin without any harmful aluminum, which we should touch on, Christy, and also the sun bombs and sun sticks. So do not slather your skin in toxic skincare or toxic sunscreen. Rather, use Tupes and Co.'s sun balm and sun stick, because this is a beautiful zinc oxide option that is much safer than traditional sunscreen. So listen, there are really, really easy swaps. These are those simple swaps that Christy was talking about. There is no need. You're going to go buy face cleaner anyway. Just go to tupesandco.com, use the code HOMEMAKER CHIC so that you can get a discount there. And that
HMC
makes it
10.
I'm sorry. I'm fired. This
You're
is
fired.
now Angela's podcast. Use code HMC10 for 10% off. I was looking at the wrong one again. And that way you can just do some of these simple swaps. Instead of buying this, buy that. Instead of slathering your face in this, slather it in that. Tupesandco.com. Use code HMC10.
I've talked to a lot of homemaker chic people, listeners lately. And when we get to the point that we talk about, toxins in your home and in your skincare and things like that, everybody's like, oh yeah, I use Tupes and Co.
Oh, good.
I switched that
Wonderful.
switched that a long time ago.
Well, even sheets. I mean, they'll spray sheets with
Yes.
flame
Oh, yeah.
retardants. I mean, you want to talk
Absolutely.
about toxins?
Yeah.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah.
Okay, Ange, sorry.
No, it's true. I mean, I switched to a wool mattress. Wool is a natural flame retardant. I mean, when I was trying to sort through like some stuff a few years ago, I'm like, okay, what's the next nerdy step I can take? But I do want to revisit so many questions, but I want to revisit something you said, because you talked about the bacteria having a complex relationship with each other. And so what I sort of want you to do is have some fun nerding out, keep it simple enough for us. But I never thought about multiple kinds of bacteria. I want you to kind of unpack some of these bacteria and what they do, and why just like, well, I eat yogurt. Isn't that good enough? I eat kefir. Like, why that's
Turns out it's not if you look at my
Not
GI
enough.
map.
I want to know, I want you to, for somebody that's just like, look, I just thought there was one bacteria and it gobbled up food and helped me go to the bathroom the next morning. End of story. Like, can you have some fun with that?
Yeah, definitely. So we have bacteria, beneficial bacteria, or also known as probiotics, right? We have those lining our entire GI tract from all the way from our mouth to the other end. Do I get to use anatomical terms on here?
Sure, go for it.
From your mouth to your anus, right?
Okay.
So, we do. We have many, many different types of bacteria, and the way our bodies were innately created, right? God created us to have an abundance of different types of bacteria, not just one. And each bacteria has a different function. Some of them are as they're growing and as they're thriving and living in a good healthy gut environment. Some of them are producing vitamins for us. There's some that produce vitamin K, and
the bacteria produce vitamins.
The bacteria produce vitamins for our bodies. Yes, when they're fed the right things. When they're fed the right things, and majority of the time there's some that eat proteins, there's some that eat fats, but majority of them really thrive on the right types of quote unquote prebiotics. People have heard prebiotic, probiotic, and then there's postbiotics as well. The prebiotics are what we get from our food. So like our vegetables that we grow or that we get from the store, and the green leafy vegetables, the berries and the apples, and all of the vegetables and fruit. That's where those prebiotics come from, and that's the food for the good bacteria. They thrive on that kind of food. So you think about like a whole food diet, just literally the food from eating the food the way that it came from the ground or from the animal. That's when we're thinking about feeding those good bacteria and really being well. That's where we want to focus our effort. Not so much in the processed department like we talked about earlier, but a whole food diet, right? So very minimally processed. That's a better, maybe a more relatable way to put it. Minimally processed or not at all. So those good bacteria, we are inhabited with many different kinds. And even the GI map doesn't give a full spectrum of all of them that we have. It picks out families of the most popular ones or the most populated ones, and the ones that are most beneficial for our bodies. And I'll just tell you girls, there is not like, we probably only know like 2% of what really, how our gut really works. It's so complex, and it's so, there's just so many different relationships and different things between all of these bacteria. There's so much we don't know about it. But what we do know is that some of them will, like lactobacillus. That's one that if you eat a lot of ferments, and if you take probiotics that has different strains of lactobacillus in it. Lactobacillus is really important in regulating our neurotransmitters, which is how our brain communicates with our body. So when we have good healthy levels of lactobacillus, then typically we're not going to struggle with things like nervous system dysregulation, like anxiety, depression, chemical imbalances in the brain and those types of things. So there's some that will help keep our brains and our neurotransmitters healthy. There's some that have the job of producing vitamins, like I was talking about here just a little bit ago. The fat soluble vitamins like vitamin K. Vitamin D is produced so we get vitamin D from the food that we eat, but then we also get it, through sunlight and on our skin. But there are other vitamins that our gut bacteria will actually produce for us. And if we don't have enough of those good bacteria, then we don't have enough of those vitamins a lot of times. I see a lot of vitamin deficient people simply because they don't have the right probiotics. And that comes because of stress is a huge contributor to those good bacteria. They respond very negatively to stress. They will literally reduce in number. The more our stress increases, those good bacteria literally depopulate. And we see a negative effect as stress goes up.
That's maddening.
I know, right? It is. And so that's just a testimony of how important it is for us to manage our stress well. And that's where I pull in some of the somatic nervous system exercises with some of my clients that really need help in that area. But we have other bacteria. Let's maybe talk about leaky gut for just a second, because that's a really huge thing that I see in people.
Well, and people hear that all the time and don't really know what it means.
Right. They're like, what?
Literally.
It's kind of a buzzword, but
it's a buzzword. Yeah.
Know what that means. So you have a protective mucus layer that, again, goes from the beginning to the end of the digestive system. It's a very thick protective mucus layer. And that mucus layer is meant to be basically your first line of defense against other pathogens, which are bad bacteria or viruses, or really anything that would try to cause harm to your body, come in and try to disrupt that gut environment, or try to get into your bloodstream. So really what it is, it's a first line defense to making sure things that shouldn't be getting through to the bloodstream don't get through to the bloodstream. You have a very thin, 1 cell thick layer of epithelium that is underneath that is protected by that mucus layer. And after that epithelial layer, after that 1 cell layer thick is compromised, we start to see things coming through the cells. So I know people can't really see the video, but
they can. We're on
YouTube
now.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
sweet. Okay.
Yep.
So you have those cells, those epithelial cells, they line your, entire gut, GI
and just
tract.
one layer. That's
One layer.
crazy.
There, I know.
That's stay.
Right? I know.
No holes. Hold the line.
I know.
Right.
So 1 cell layer thick. And when that mucus layer is compromised, there is basically those cells become very subject to kind of almost, I guess, lazy would be kind of the term, right? So like they should be really tight, right up next to each other like this. And once that mucus layer is compromised over time, those cells kind of start to do this. And then as they open up just a little bit, that's where we start to see leaky gut. We start to see large proteins from gluten is one of the main inflammatory, plant proteins for people. We start to see large proteins like gluten and lactose and casein from dairy, and viruses and bacteria and things getting through those cells into the bloodstream that should not be there. And when that happens, our nervous system senses that. It creates basically this like big red alarm, all out immune response. And for some people, that looks like something as simple, seemingly simple as allergies, right? Like seasonal allergies. They start to get, the sniffles, or they're really sensitive to mold, or, maybe just during in the spring, they're just absolutely miserable or whatever. It can be something as simple as that. Eczema is another really, eczema is basically asthma on the skin. So we see things like asthma and eczema, which nowadays are just, I mean, it's just normal, right?
Mhm.
Those things have been normalized. We see headaches from people, and all of these are a sign that this person has a gut integrity problem. That's what we call that. So there's generally somewhere a breakdown in the mucus layer, and then those cells have become compromised, and there's things getting through from the gut into the bloodstream that are not supposed to be there.
Mhm.
And this becomes a major, I mean, it's a major issue for a lot of different reasons. It causes a whole cascade of inflammatory processes in our body when that happens. But one of the main issues that I see, especially with women around our age, 30s and 40s, and on into their 50s, when they're still eating gluten and they have leaky gut, that gluten is, even if it's really good gluten, I absolutely love einkorn, I absolutely love sourdough, and all those things are wonderful. And if our guts were not leaky, then yes, we could have those, we could tolerate those, and there'd be no problem, right? Wouldn't be causing us any issues. But when there's leaky gut at play, any amount of gluten gets through, causes that inflammatory cascade in our body. And even if we can't feel it right now, again, we're looking at creating an environment of chronic disease down the road for ourselves. So leaky gut is a huge problem. And I see it in, I mean, I would say, I haven't done like real numbers on it for my clients, but probably 80% of people. It's huge. It's really, really huge. And we're seeing it in kids. We're seeing it really young. And it's because of the bad food. It's because of recurrent antibiotic use. The antibiotics are a really big problem because they will literally, they just come in and they just kill. They kill the bad, but then they kill the good as well. And again, when those good bacteria aren't there, especially the mucus producers, we have certain types of the good bacteria. We have mucus producers, and then so those bacteria not only are they're not only absorbing our nutrients and our water and things like that for us, they're not only producing vitamins for us and regulating our neurotransmitters, but they're also laying down that mucus layer in our gut. And every 7 to 10 days, we get a new mucus layer if those bacteria are behaving properly, if we have enough of them. But if we don't have enough of them, they can't lay down that new protective mucus layer. And that is a huge problem because that's the precursor that leads to leaky gut, which is the precursor that leads to autoimmune disease and cancer and things like that. So those good bacteria are of utmost importance. And going back to our diets and our stress level, and making sure those things are really the two places that we start when we're thinking about gut health. We have to go to that nutritional foundation.
Mm.
I don't
Let's
know if that
leave
was nerdy
people.
enough.
Well, I mean, I know this is not an easy topic to chew off in an hour
Yeah.
because it's the air that we breathe, the water. I was introduced to this idea earlier this year, which I can't believe it's taken me this long to think about, but of water as food, your most important food, foundational layer. Again, you could drink a glass of tap water. Maybe you know what's in it, maybe you don't. Okay, fine. But like over the course of a decade, 2 decades, 3 decades, and all of a sudden you're taking in things like chlorine, for example, which kill off your gut bacteria. And then 30 years down the road, turns out you have gut problems. You really can't think of a more foundational food than you can water. And so we started geeking out on this and ended up bringing in spring water that's packaged in these glass carboys, and we get it delivered to our door. And this is a luxury. I understand that. But clean water is almost like the most foundational place that you can really start, because what are you taking? All of your cells are using this. So what is it that you're giving to them? So my point
Yeah.
is that the things that affect our gut health are quite literally everything. Everything
Everything.
affects your gut health. Your
Absolutely.
sleep, your environment, your food, your stress, all of these things. But I want you to give people, Christy, an idea of, we've touched on the nutritional foundation. Maybe we've touched a little bit on reducing that toxic load on your body. But kind of this third factor that I see is actually giving your body the right supplementation. Um, And, I think a perfect example of this is in my GI map. By the way, I have been fermenting and eating um, my made fermented foods for 15 years. I had almost untraceable amounts of lactobacillus. And
It's just, dang, that's unbelievable.
I was floored. I was floored by this. And so my point is, like Christy, you said, your diet's on point. There's not much more you could do. Okay. But even that is insufficient. So you have to get to the point where you're actually giving your body supplementation, and whether it's recovering from things in childhood or some sort of deficiency you had or some sort of medication, whatever it is, at some point you have to deal with it. And at some point, food can take you this far. And maybe for some people that's far enough. But to like actually restore, we're actually looking at the right sort of supplementation.
Right. Yeah. And that's absolutely key. The supplements are, the nutrition is where we start. And then, like you said, any gaps after that, that's where we're looking into giving people the right specialized supplements that they need for a time. It's not for, when we're looking at fixing the gut and looking at functional medicine, we're not looking at creating lifetime patients, right? We're looking at helping them get in the short window of their life. You look at, a year of work on your gut in the span of your life is very small, but it's extremely important. It's one of the most important things you could do. But smart supplementation for a short period of time, that's what we do to restore the gut and to really give it the boost that it needs. So one of the main things that I see when, like, I guess going back to the leaky gut thing we were talking about, one of the main things that I see, because majority of people struggle with it and have it, we see decreased immune function with that. Those good bacteria that are laying down the mucus and then mucus degraders are coming along. This is another bacteria that does this, comes along and eats up the old mucus. And it's just kind of this, symbiotic mutual relationship that they have. When we don't have enough of those good bacteria, we actually see that there's an immune deficiency, right? Because they're doing those things, but they're also fighting pathogens, and they're keeping the bad bacteria and viruses and things at bay or away from us. And if we don't have enough of those, then we see an immune deficiency. And so when I have somebody on the GI map who is immune deficient, there's certain things that we have to do. So there's colostrum is one of the things that we love to use. Now, fresh colostrum, which I actually have been using recently because my milk lady, her cows are calving. So I'm like, perfect. I can get a gallon of fresh colostrum at a time. And that's ideal, right? But a lot of people can't do that. So smart supplementation with a really high quality colostrum. L-glutamine is an amino acid that we use to help rebuild that gut lining. So it's literally, amino acids are literally the makeup of proteins. And so we need that. That's what the cellular wall and the cellular structure is made out of. So the L-glutamine is a specialized supplement that we use to help literally remake that gut lining and rebuild that gut lining. Zinc carnosine is another one that we use. So there's many different types of zinc, kind of like there's, many different types of magnesium or something like that. But zinc carnosine is a gut specific type of zinc that has direct immune support in the gut. It's absolutely incredible. It's my favorite type of zinc.
Am I taking that? I'm assuming I'm taking that. Like, get all excited.
Yeah, I think it's in your combo product, the powder.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right.
Yeah,
Just checking, making sure I got all the good stuff.
Right. Glutamine, and the zinc, yeah, all three of those are in that.
Okay. Great.
GI Ultra Max combo product. And then Saccharomyces boulardii is another one. This is it's one strain of probiotic, but it's one of the most protective probiotics we have. It's not one that we necessarily find innately in the gut, but it's one that is kind of it's directional for all of the other ones. So like the Saccharomyces boulardii, not only does it kills things like H. pylori, which I find in people all the time. It's very destructive to the gut. it kills bad pathogens in the gut, bad bacteria and viruses, but it helps rebuild the immune system, and it helps those good bacteria begin to repopulate again so that they can produce the mucus and they can produce the vitamins and they can come in and, you know, the lactobacillus. So it really is an encourager of those to start to regrow again. Then we're giving them the right food through certain types of fiber, certain prebiotics. We're eating lots of vegetables and fruits, encouraging them to grow. There's a specific type of bacteria that I had none of, like you said, Shay, untraceable.
Yeah, I had
Makes
one
you
that
feel like a
didn't
big
even
fat
have
failure.
It didn't even have like DNA remnants.
Right.
It wasn't even like we were here, but now we're not. It's
Right.
It was
We're gone. We're not even here anymore.
All the way.
Elvis has left the building. Yeah. Golly.
I had absolutely no, it's called acromantia.
I had that too.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Acromantia is
No acromancia.
Angela, all three of us had no acromantia. So it's one of the lower populated bacteria in the gut. Like when you look at the lab ranges on all of these, acromantia is one that is you'll see usually about half as much of as you will some of the others, like the lactobacillus or the bifidobacter. And so it tends to be the most affected, I've found. It tends to be the most affected by antibiotic use and stress and things like that, right? So a lot of times we'll see people have either very little or really no acromantia. And that's a really big problem for many different reasons. But number one is that's one of the ones that helps keep that gut lining, that integrity there for that gut lining. It's one of the ones involved in leaky gut if there is none or very, very little of them to be found.
Is that the one? Is that the one that is like Ozempic does something to a certain neural pathway, right? I mean, is there like a kind of acromantia Ozempic connection or something? What am I talking about?
Yeah, there's a hormone.
I know there's something. I know they kind of do. One's like a natural option, and one's terrifying.
Right, exactly. There's a hormone that your gut produces called GLP-1.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So that will regulate how your body uses your carbohydrates that you take in. And so when you have enough acromantia, you have plenty of GLP-1, which triggers your body to understand that it's full and that you don't need to keep eating, right? It triggers that, basically turns off that hunger mechanism. And when you have enough of those acromantia, they're doing many other wonderful things for you, probably things we don't even understand at this point, but it does regulate that GLP-1 hormone. And so
I just thought it was because of summer. I'm like, I just don't have like the same appetite that I normally do, but I've been supplementing with acromantia.
Yeah, my appetite's way down. And that's one of the reasons I reached out to Christy this time. Now, Christy helped me with all my MS symptoms and all Epstein-Barr and stuff a few years ago, but I came to her this year and I said, like, look, I'm gaining weight like a freight train and I am not doing anything different. And I am not willing to accept, it's just because you're perimenopausal. Because my whole like stance on my personal health is like, oh, you're having headaches. Well, why? Oh, your acne's flaring up. Well, why? Well, like when people... Yeah, when people are just like, I have allergies, I have this, I'm like, no, you got to fight, girlfriend. Push and ask questions. Why? And like the why just goes deeper and deeper and deeper, literally down to your gut.
Oh my gosh.
And so that's why I went to you, because I was like so frustrated and it was pretty devastating. You know, you reached for your summer clothes and you're like, I can't fit into these and I'm not doing anything different. And this is not, I'm not going to take this. And then I had like zilch acromantia, like none, nada.
Or I had this one where I have been low in iron my entire life. As long as I've had my blood tested, low in iron, supplement it. And finally I was like, but why? They're like, you need to eat more red meat. I was like, I don't think you're understanding who you're talking to.
Yeah.
I eat more red meat. We're not having the
same conversation.
90% of the world's population. Okay. And turns out when I did my GI map with Christy, I can't remember what it was now, Christy, but it was like I lacked something that absorbs iron. So it was like you could eat iron all day long. You could supplement it all day long. You're not going to move the marker. Your body literally can't take it in.
absorb it. I think it was it was a family called Enterobacter.
Okay.
They are iron, basically. Well, they absorb the iron for you, but then if you have certain people have certain overgrowths of bad bacteria. We've talked a lot about the good bacteria, but when you don't have enough good bacteria, you leave the door open for these bad bacteria like staph and strep, citrobacter, and lots of other things to come, H. pylori, lots of other things to come in and start to take over. And they eat your vitamins. They eat them up for themselves. And some of them are iron consumers. And so they will literally take almost every ounce of that iron that you're eating in that steak or whatever it is, and they will consume it for themselves so that they can continue to live and thrive when they're the bad guys that shouldn't be there.
It's like this crazy war zone going on in there.
Constant war.
Unbelievable. Okay. Can we just do part 2?
I want to talk about bad guys more.
Sure. Yeah.
I want to talk about more on the supplementation aspect of things because, I want to make sure that people leave. So sorry to leave you hanging, y'all, until next week, but come back and we'll talk some more about the bad bacteria, maybe some more symptoms that you could potentially be experiencing if those are out of balance, and then kind of really lay into the test, what it accounts for, how they can get it, and then what supplementation looks like, because I think you've given people something to chew on for the next week, which is like, look, take stock of your diet. And it's really easy to think I'm doing great if you actually write it down, except for that one thing, and then here, and then here, and then here. Okay. Then amplify those over a year. And all of a sudden you realize, ooh, I'm actually maybe contributing to some of the problem here. So take the next 7 days, look at your water, look at your air, look at your food, take note of your symptoms, and then come back here with us next week, as long as Christy will agree to give us some more of her time. If you have questions for Christy, check the show notes because her Instagram information will be there. Her email information will be there. So you can make contact with her if you'd like. Let's overwhelm her again. Poor Christy.
I'm still working through all of the influx from last time, but it's been such a blessing. It really has.
But also
incredible people that you guys have in your audience. Incredible.
Oh, that's awesome to hear. Also, this is like a lot of you probably have a doctor that you already see. Like this is a readily available test. It's a GI map. So you don't, if you can't get a hold of Christy, go see your doctor.
Well, I will say though,
will they know how to
I don't know.
They got malnutrition. I don't know.
Yeah, they would look at. I've had people tell me this. Like I took this into my doctor and showed it to them, and they were like, their jaw hit the floor.
Crickets.
People tell me that they have never seen anything like this in their life, and they were intrigued, and they were like, I want to know more about this. What is this?
That'd be amazing if it became.
I can't handle. Yeah, I think it's unacceptable that it's not.
Same with the genetic test.
Why isn't that step one? But yeah,
understand
the genetic test. Hello.
Yeah. All right. So much more to talk about. Let us know what you think. Leave comments. Email Christy, and we'll be back here next week with part 2. Christy, yes. Nothing like asking her to do it on the air. I'm like, can you come back, please?
That's fine. No problem.
All right, ladies, have a great week, and we'll see you next week. Cheers.
Cheers.